G'day.
And welcome to Parkside Live. Thanks for joining us. And I don't know about where you guys are. We've had a pretty wild week this week with weather. Just lots of rain, lots of wind. We were happy today to have a little bit of a relief from that. How did you find it this week?
Oh, not too bad. A bit of rain for sure, but yeah, it was a bit chilly.
I liked the break from the hot weather myself. I don't know about whether you're hot weather people or cold weather people, but we had a pretty hot conversation, I think, this morning as we gathered around the table. And it was challenging for me, so I'm hoping that our conversation tonight around more than me, it's not about me, will challenge you too.
And so tonight we want to explore what does it mean to live a life that is about more than me. And I want to start off sharing a personal experience. Recently, our children for Christmas happened to be given money from several different people, a lot of different people. Now, when I was given money, I still remember as a kid receiving like $1 or $2 in a card, and I got that $1 or $2, and I thought I was king of the world.
You can stretch it far.
Yes. And this accumulation of money to our kids, each of them were wandering around with more than $100, which I was a bit amazed by. And I think my mind still struggles to say, yeah, this is what it is. And honestly, if we did a comparison, it's a bit sad to say, but I probably got the same amount of joy out of $1 or $2 than they're going to get out of whatever their money is. And so this week, we organised for our kids to go and see a movie. And after we'd organised to see that movie and actually gone and seen that movie, a friend of theirs said, hey, we're going to see that movie again tomorrow. Do you want to come? And our kids were obviously very excited. I think you were not quite so excited to see it again.
Oh, I would have happily seen it again, but I think because it was just yesterday. The next day wouldn't have been when I would have chosen.
Yeah. And so we were making our decision, considering who would want to go, who could go. Yeah. We'd already allocated our budget for that week, and so this last minute request would ordinarily be something that we might just say, not this week, maybe another week. And I realised then that someone had given me $50 for Christmas, which is a big thing for me, and it was quite a nice gesture. And I'm seeing this opportunity for our kids to go see the movies, and I'm seeing that $50 on my bedside table, and I'm thinking, that's mine. It was given to me for Christmas. They went to the movies because of the work that I did. This is mine. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense for me to use that $50 on my bedside table for something that was about more than just me. I didn't like it, but it made sense. And I think sometimes when we want to live a life that is about more than us, you can relate to those feelings. I have the opportunity to spend money on me, and that's going to be good, and I'm going to enjoy it. And when something comes along that is about more than just me, it can be very difficult to share. I'm not sure if you've ever had a moment that you could share.
Yeah, I can think of a few things, and not really necessarily to do with money, but to do with my time.
Oh yes.
Because there are times when I think I just need some time to myself.
Yes.
But then someone comes along who needs me to spend some time with them. You know, that might be outside of our immediate family, and it's like, oh, I really just wanted to sit and read my book, or just wanted to go for a walk by myself. And yet, you know, I feel that, okay, I need to share some of what I feel is mine, but this is my time with someone else, and I can find it really hard.
Yes. And as you're watching this, you may have an example come to mind of a time when you had a choice between me or more than me, and it made sense to do the more than me, but it was difficult. And that's something that's internal. We also find ourselves in a world that feeds the me focus. There was a time when families had a family car. In our world, most families would have 2, maybe even 3 cars.
Yeah.
There was a time when there was such a thing as one family income. And now most families have several different incomes, and we know people who live under the same roof, but say, this is my money, this is your money, and live on a separate plan. And perhaps even with those examples, you can relate to that. And they're not always destructive or negative things, but it is certainly the way that we live. We were talking today about companies who set to make money, no longer providing a service, but actually exploiting the people that they are selling to maximise their profit. It's not about anything more than me and getting my money. And so we find these challenges. And again, as you're watching this, you may be able to relate to an experience you've had where you found the world that you're moving through, relationally, socially, professionally, trying to just say, it's you. You've got to look after you, or you're not going to survive. And living, I think, from a place of survival is sometimes necessary, but it is not beneficial. When we're living for survival, everything becomes a crisis. What do I do now? And psychologists will tell us our brain actually switches modes from think, consider options, what's the best option, to just survive. And some people will use this shorthand of fight, flight, or freeze. Like that, our mind just sees those 3 options and away we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw some inspiration here from the scriptures and look at a life that is about more than me. And we're reading from the book of Acts here, book of Acts chapter 2, and I'm going to read from verse 40. And it just says this, Acts chapter 2 verse 40. And then Peter continued preaching for a long time, strongly urging the crowd, save yourself from this crooked generation. Those who believed what Peter said were baptized and added to the church that day, about 3,000 in all. All the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the fellowship, and to sharing meals, and to prayer. A deep sense of awe came over everyone, and the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders. And all the believers met together in one place and shared everything they had. They sold their property and possessions and shared the money with those in need. They worshipped together at the temple each day, met in homes to break bread, and shared their meals with great joy and generosity, all the while praising God together and enjoying the goodwill of all the people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. So this is a bit of a snapshot of a group of people who were exploring faith about 2,000 years ago. And just on the first read through there, we talked about this for this morning. What stands out to you?
Just the fact that they were sharing stuff, where they were sharing their time, their food, what they had.
Yeah, and for me, I get excited about the impact that you see. That it wasn't just about a small group, but actually a crowd had gathered, and even people who were outside this group were struck with awe. There was something going on that they couldn't quite understand, but they also admired, some from a distance. And then people were drawn in. They said, this is a way that I want to live my life. And as we're talking about this now, perhaps you've taken a moment to read through that yourself. I wonder what stands out to you as you read that. What I want to talk about is the differences right now. We live in a world that encourages individuality. And there's been a lot of changes and since this time that have moved us in our part of the world to individuals. I can access the world through a similar device, perhaps to what you're watching this on now. I can look at whatever I want to look at. I don't have to think about what anyone else wants to look at. I have my device. And if you've got teenagers in your life, that's a big deal. I had a long conversation with one of my kids about, I want my device. And we talked about what would be different between having a shared device, which is what we've got now, versus their own, because I would still keep the restrictions on it that I think are necessary to stop my young child walking unsupervised through the internet village.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a crazy thought to me. And in the end, what it came down to was, yes, but I would own it. And this child was willing to save hundreds of dollars to buy something simply so they could say, that's mine, not ours. We live in a world that sets that up. There are places in the world now that still are more communally oriented, where we need to work together in order to survive. But that's one difference. This was a very community-oriented period in history where people said it is about us, and right now we are living in a time where it's a lot more, about me. And you may have your own thoughts on the differences in culture that perhaps you see today. Similarly, people who described here, we would say were a lot poorer. That most of the people had lived on maybe 2 meals. Now that may be a reality for you if you're watching this. Whereas today we would have 3, 4 meals. You know, if you're a gym junkie and you're trying to bulk up, you know, maybe you're a 6 meal a day person. So meals were limited. Space, homes, particularly in our part of the world, most of us have our own room. I grew up sharing a room until I was about 14. That's no longer the way. Yeah. And we have friends who have got kids who are 10 and they like, no, they need their own room. You know? And so there's a difference, individual versus community there. And someone made the observation too that things just seem to be given more freely. I remember a particular trip I took to Myanmar, and while I was in Myanmar, I visited an orphanage, and someone else had organised this trip, and so we went in, and actually we arrived for lunch, and they brought out plates of vegetables, salad, and then fried birds, which we later found out were pigeons, and they weren't fat chickens, they weren't fat pigeons, they were skinny, and it was more batter and bone than anything else. And I took one bite and I went, oh, this is not good. And I turned to one of my travelling companions and said, oh, I don't like this. And he said, you've got to eat this. They'll be offended. And so I sat there and ate whilst the staff and the kids were standing up the other end of the table watching. And I found out afterwards that they'd been working towards that one meal for a week. And they'd given up some of their small food so that we could eat. Here, it's like if you go to a takeaway restaurant and your friend doesn't have the money, we're like, tough mate, you can have this soft drink and that's it. You know, it seems like perhaps when we have less, the giving is easier. So there are differences, but I think there are some principles and practices that can guide us as we seek to live a life that is about more than me. And what we see here is that this is a group of people who actually were set apart. They were different from the crowds around them. What made them different? And this is a bit cheeky because it's a bit outside this passage, but what made these particular group of people different?
They were following Jesus.
Yeah, and how did that start for them?
These guys, some of them had known Jesus, met Jesus, seen how he lived, and then witnessed him die, but then saw him when he came back to life again. And then they were given his spirit, and then were sent by him to go and live the life that he'd come to give them.
Yeah.
So they were sent out by him. Yeah.
And so there's a moment before this where this group of people had a personal experience of God. The scriptures talk about receiving the gift of the Holy Spirit, but they were opened to see a world that was more than me because they had encountered the creator of the universe who stepped into our world and all the problems and said, no, this is about more than me. I'm going to step into this world, into a poor family. I'm going to be born not into a happy home, but into a filthy stable. I'm going to live in an occupied territory. I'm going to spend the first 3 years of my life as a refugee in a foreign country, and yet I'm still going to live a life that is about more than me. And this group of people had an encounter with the creator of the universe, the one who steps into our lives. And as you're watching this, you may have had an experience of that. Perhaps what I'm saying to you makes no sense at all, and I want to tell you that there is an opportunity for you to experience a moment that is about more than you, that can transform your life. You can experience this same Jesus.
Yeah.
And even though we might be separated by thousands of years, that you can experience this same encounter with God that these people had. And as a result of being encountered, then there's this word that we use that we don't use at all. But in this passage, it's called being an apostle. Now, what's it being an apostle mean?
Someone who was sent.
Yeah, like quite literally. They stole the word from the Romans, who would send out apostles to bring Roman culture to a freshly conquered village, freshly conquered town. These apostles would be sent to this different culture. They would set up government. They would set up taxation. They would set up policing. They would bring a whole new culture in. And these people who had had this experience with the creator of the universe, an experience with the one who rose from the dead, then said, well, we want to share this, sent to all these people. And this happened to be a crowd of hundreds of thousands of people that they stood up with and spoke to. We just caught their tail end of it there. I don't know about you, but for most people, public speaking is not something most people rate. I remember being in a training session of about 300 people, and the presenter was upstairs on stage, and they said, how many of you would rather endure some form of physical pain than public speaking? I looked around, I reckon about 295 hands went up. Like people just, I don't like it. And yet what we see is ordinary people who've had a transformative experience, facing their fears, and then having an impact. Actually taking this idea, I am sent with a purpose, and seeing a crowd transform, seeing the people living on the fringes of a community transformed. People who risked life and sometimes even endured death because they had this sense of being sent to bring a different culture to the world. I find that inspirational. When I encounter a purpose that is about more than me, that draws more out of me than I could have. I mean, you sound like you're agreeing there.
Oh yeah, like I think, I read that and I go, I want that too, even though it will cost me something, like I have to spend my time or whatever. But there's just something when, we can be, I'm scared of giving more of my finances or my time or whatever it might be. But when you do, and there is that greater purpose, there is something amazing that happens. And when you see the impact of how it impacts those around you, and I think that's what's exciting when you read this, is other people were looking, and it says as they looked, they saw all that had gone on before, the sharing, the people living in harmony who, really they're all different people, but how come they're getting on and they're sharing and loving each other? They want a part of that as well, and I'm like, if I can be a part of that, then that is real life. I think sometimes we think real life is how much we can get for ourselves, but the life that Jesus came in, the life that we're there, that's more than me, is the life that actually brings, I think, joy and challenge and purpose.
And as you're watching this, I want you to reflect. When was the last time that you gave yourself to a moment, to a cause that was about more than you? When was the last time that you participated in something that the primary payoff was for someone else and not for you. When we step into those moments, we were designed for, we are transformed. Sometimes we have the joy of seeing someone's life transformed because we step into that. Sometimes we have the joy of seeing a community transformed. But there's something in us. And the irony is that when we step into these more than me moments, these more than me missions, somehow we become more than we were as well. And what we see here, just in this list, is that this group of people, they gathered and they shared their possessions. Even when they didn't have the possessions, they sold what they have and gave money. So there was a financial sharing. When we look here, we see that there was a sharing of breaking of bread. They shared meals together. They worked together. They shared space. And they shared a worship. They came together and said, this is the God that we will worship. And you can see there's a cost there. You talked about, your challenge was sharing time. Mine was sharing money. I wonder, as you think about a shared life, what's the first obstacle that comes to your mind? There are challenges, there are costs to living a life that is about more than me. But it's only in stepping into those challenges that we actually become more than we are, that we get to see a world come into being that is about more than just individuals. A world that benefits humanity. And that's what we see here, that when others see it, they are drawn to this way of life. This way of life that shares, this way of life that transforms. And it can start with something simple. I remember as a young boy, we were part of a large family, 6 people, and we actually took a trip overseas to a foreign country, and there was an older gentleman there, and wasn't rich, didn't drive a flash car, but this one man took us out for lunch to a park. And when I say took us out, he didn't expect us to provide anything. He had taken the time to make sandwiches and bring like a few bottles of drink. So it was by no means fancy. But the generosity that he showed, he gave his time. He gave of what he had, which was bread and jam and peanut butter, I think I remember, and a little bit of like cordial. And he took us out. He showed us hospitality. He made that moment about more than him. And I still remember that years later. And so I want to invite you into this Jesus-focused life. The Jesus that said, my life is actually about more than me. As we read here, it's Jesus who gave his life, who rose again. I want to invite you into this life of more than me. And if that's a decision that you want to make as you're watching this, we're going to invite you to pray a very simple prayer. And that is, Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life. Take me into this life that is about more than me. And so if that's your desire, then pray with us now. Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life. Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life. And if that's a prayer that you pray, we would love to support you in any way we can. If you're watching this on our socials, drop us a direct message. If you're watching this on YouTube, then drop us a comment. We'd love to respond. We check in and read all our comments. And then if you're passing through Sydney, Australia, let us know. We'd love you to join us and the others who gather in this space for a conversation and a coffee. Thanks for tuning in. God bless.
Bye.